Good morning. It's May the 18th. The 2023 planting season continues to march on. Done in areas, close to being finished in other areas, delays in some areas. As we get to the back half of this planting season, let's think about what do we do with maturities. You're on the ground with Rob Seco. There are areas with acres yet to plant. There are areas that are under delay because of wet conditions and continued rainfall events. What do we do with maturity as we get to the back half, the back third, the back 10% of the acres that are out there? Let's think of it in two different ways. One, corn, then we'll talk about soybeans. One is a little bit more complex than the other. So corn first. If you are south of a latitude of the southern Minnesota border, so Iowa, Nebraska, the southern 20% of South Dakota, the southern third of Wisconsin, that trigger date's May 25th, right in there, May 25. If you're north of that line, so 2/3 of South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, the northern 2/3, maybe northern half of Wisconsin, you trickle that or you cinch that date back a few days. Let's call that the 22nd of May. That will be your trigger date. So your trigger dates are May 22 or May 25. That's when you switch maturities. And you use your fullest season hybrid as your barometer. Consider it like this. If your window is 90 to 96 relative maturity day corn, 90 to 96 day corn hybrids, use the 96 day as your trigger. So when you get to that first trigger point, be it the 22nd of May or the 25th of May, now you pull back your RM, you pull back your maturity by 5 days. Maybe 6, but for simplicity reasons, let's call it 5 days. Okay, so relative to your first season hybrid that you plant. So in that scenario, 90 to 96 day, if that is your window, you go from 96 day, now you pull it back to 91 day, 90, 91, 92, somewhere in there. That makes sense? So now as you get to another trigger day, so when you get now to the 1st of June, you trigger again and you lower your maturity once again. But you lower your maturity from the fullest season hybrid that you plant. Again, let's use that example of 90 to 96 day RM. And if 96 days is your fullest day, now you pull back on the 1st of June and later, you pull back 8 days. So you're going from 96 back to 88. Okay? You're not going from 90 down to 82. You're going from your full season back to, because your fullest season maturities at any given planting date will still give you the most advantage and the greatest performance because of the window that it has to grow, because of the grain fill window. So fuller maturities will do the best. So you switch back to the fullest maturity that we can get away with based on that planting date. So again, that trigger point is on that latitude of the southern Minnesota border. South of there, it's May 25th. North of there, it's May 22nd. On those trigger dates, you pull your first date back by 5 days. You pull your second date back, which would be June 1st, you pull that back by 8 relative maturity days. Okay? Drop dead dates, the answer to that is it depends. If I'm thinking about Minnesota as just the geographical center there, if you're thinking about the Dakotas and then Wisconsin on the other side, I think about central and northern Minnesota. That date's going to be June the 5th. When I think about the southern third of Minnesota, that date's June the 10th for grain. So those are the trigger dates, bringing back your relative maturity in corn and probably the last day to really plant corn. So now let's flip over to soybeans, a completely different story on soybeans. The fact is this: if you're on May the 25th, or if you're on June the 1st, or if you're on June the 5th, you continue to plant the same maturity that you originally intended to plant. Right? Your soybeans are going to respond and react to the summer solstice as the light period of the day does what? Shortens. That will trigger soybeans to go from vegetative to reproductive phase. And actually, if you get way late in planting soybeans, you may even want to add maturity, go even a little bit full to force that soybean to stay in a vegetative stage a little bit longer before it goes to flower. Okay? Now with soybeans, the later you plant soybeans, whether it be late planting or even a replant situation, you need to increase your seeding rate. Okay? Increase that seeding rate by 10 to 20%. Reason being is because the later you plant soybeans, the less vegetative phase period it will have, so it'll put on less vegetation. They'll be shorter. You'll have fewer nodes. You'll have less stem area. So by upping your seeding rate on later planted soybeans, you're in a sense planting more stem area, planting more area for nodes, for flowers, and subsequently more pods and beans. Okay? So that's where we're at today, thinking about what we do with maturity as we get late and later into this 2023 planting season. If you need any help whatsoever, you call us here at Rob Seco. You've been on the ground with Rob Seco. I'm Todd Claussen.